Hi, my name is Stuart Corrigan and welcome to this webinar on Getting Things Done. Getting Things Done was developed by David Allen and has been around for 30 years and is based on 30 years of research and also David's experience of working with thousands of executives and organisations to help them get more done with less stress and less effort. Getting Things Done in the UK is presented by Next Action Associates, who are one of the global franchise holders for the David Allen Company. David Allen has been recognised by Fast Company as one of the world's most influential leaders and has been voted number 24 in the top 50 worldwide leadership and management experts. Getting Things Done is really about a core concept, which is your mind is for having ideas, not for holding them. Until a few years ago, cognitive psychologists believed that our mind could hold up to around 7 items. Recent research over the past 2 years has suggested that actually our mind is good for holding about 2 to 3 items. Yet many of us go about our day and about our working life trying to keep everything that needs to be done in our head. The reality is that we often drop the ball, and as David says himself, often we end up doing things when they blow up rather than when they show up. GTD matters because information overload is a huge problem. According to research, we're getting 300 new pieces of information every day. If we're putting that information onto a memory stick, we'd require 34 gigs of memory every day just to store the new information that's coming into our brain. What's also interesting is if you look at all the information that's been created in the world, 90% of it has been generated over the past 2 years. And yet we continue to try to keep that information and try to keep what needs to be done in our heads. If the cognitive psychologists are right, our brains are only good for 2 to 3 pieces of information. Trying to keep things in our head is simply not a good strategy. Have you ever been in the middle of that conversation where you've thought to yourself, that's so important, I won't forget that I need to do that. Then 2 minutes later someone else talks to you, or you read something, or you get a phone call, and suddenly that bit of information has gone. In a work context, information overload is also a huge challenge. For example, 81% of employees today are dissatisfied with their job. Many of the challenges is being clear around who does what by when. If you look at, again, the amount of email that's coming at us, seemingly we're getting an average of 56 emails per day. In my former life as an operations consultant, when I was coaching senior leaders, many of them were getting of upwards of 150 to 200 emails per day. Again, if you're trying to keep all the actions in your head related to those emails, there's a good chance that we're going to drop the ball. If we go back to the 1930s, economists at that stage in history said that by today we'd be working on average of 1 to 2 days per week. The reality is that most of us work at least 40 to 50 hours per week. The Harvard Business Review said the average executive today is working around 56 hours per week. Of course, this eats hugely into our family time. Research shows that on average in a week, we're only spending 8 hours with our family. At a weekend, we're only spending an average of 2.33 hours with our family. And the average amount of minutes that we're spending with our family per day is around 36 minutes of quality time. The challenge is this is leading to chaos. A key concept, therefore, is to say, how can we get information out of our head so that we can move to having our mind more like water? In other words, that our mind is still, that we can concentrate better, that when information comes at us, we can respond in the same way that a lake would respond if you were throwing a stone into it. It doesn't overreact or it doesn't underreact. Have you ever been in a situation whereby you were in a meeting and that critical bit of information came at you, and because you had so much in your head, in essence, you underreacted and you lost a bit of information? Or because you were stressed, you overreacted and you were more angry or more stressed than you should have been to what was really just an innocuous piece of information. What we also want to do and help you do with the Getting Things Done method is create space in your life, create space in your mind, so that you can think about those creative projects that you want to do, and create space in your life so that you can spend more time with your family or spend more time achieving those goals that you've always wanted to achieve. Imagine if you had the freedom to be more creative, to get stuck into those projects you'd always wanted to get into, to pass that exam, to do that degree, maybe just to spend more time with your family. What if it's to spend more time in strategic thinking, thinking about where your organisation needs to go or where your department needs to go, rather than being caught up in the day-to-day mire of work and not being able to lift your head from your desk to be able to see those strategic priorities? Or maybe it's that simply you want to be present. Simply be present with your partner, with your friends, with your children. So who's this for? Well, really it's for everyone. It's for parents, it's for people who want to be more creative, it's for professionals. Hundreds of thousands of people across the world are using Getting Things Done to be more productive with less stress. For example, best-selling author Daniel Pink, as he says, he's a devout card-carrying member of GTD. He got hooked in it 15 years ago, and according to Daniel, has massively increased his productivity. The Vice President of Hewlett & Packard says that using Getting Things Done allows him to be more present with his teams. And people like musicians are using this to create the headspace to be more creative. So let's talk a little bit about the methodology. Well, in terms of the big picture, there's three aspects to Getting Things Done. One is the Fundamentals course, which is really about helping you get control of your day-to-day workspace in order to start to look to higher horizons. Second element of Getting Things Done is to think about the next 12-month horizons. What are the projects that you need to deliver in order to start to make progress in your life? And third is looking off to longer horizons, being clear on your purpose and your vision, and those longer term goals that you want to achieve at some point over the next 1 to 5 years. So how do you get started getting more things done with less stress and less effort? Well, there are 5 steps. Let's quickly talk about the 5 steps. Step 1 is having a system that allows you to capture the information that's coming at you. Step 2 is clarifying that information so that when you come to do work, it's sized in such a way that it completely beats procrastination. Step 3 is once you've sized that work, knowing where to put it until you're ready to do it. Step 4 is called Reflect, which is about keeping your work and your system up to date. And step 5 is Engaging, which is how to choose which piece of work to do first. A useful way to think about these 5 steps is to say, what does good practice look like and what does bad practice look like? Well, if we start with stage 1 in capture, a useful question here is to say, what has your attention right now? An idea is to stop this webinar, to press pause, and to do what's called as a mind sweep. This is a good way of just seeing what's currently on your mind. So press pause, get a bit of paper and pen, and just write down all the things that currently has your attention. Some people, of course, when they do this, they feel a little stressed because suddenly they realise how many things they've got on their mind. but soon they start to feel better because they've gone through this process of getting it out of their mind and onto paper. Capturing is about ensuring that when something comes at us in life, be it an errand, be it a task, be it something related to work, be it a request from our family, that we have a way of capturing it until we're ready to clarify what needs to be done. Bad practice here is to not have a method of capturing anything and to try and keep everything in your head. Well, if the scientists are right, and actually only 3 things can be kept in our head at any given time, what we'll find is we drop the ball often. Good practice is getting things out of your head and having a system, for example, when you go to meetings, to ensure that a portion of your notebook is created specifically for capturing the tasks during the meeting and then going back to your desk and putting them in your inbox. Making sure that that inbox is then emptied every couple of days to ensure that those tasks are then put in to your system. Your email is another way of capturing information, but often people use this as their to-do list and they end up playing email roulette. We teach people how to capture information here and then move it out of that place until it's ready to be done. A second stage, once you've captured information, is to ensure that it's clarified. In essence, it's put into the right size of chunks to ensure that when you go to do that work in 24 hours or 48 hours or maybe a week's time, that when you look at it, you know exactly what needs to be done. Think of the concept of being kind to your future self. That when you clarify that item now and you look at it in a week's time, you'll know exactly what needs to be done. Effectively, beating procrastination. When you look at something that you've captured, as you're asking the question, is it actionable? Now, whether the answer is yes or no, what we do during the Getting Things Done system and coaching you to learn this system is we give you in essence a little microprocessor for your head, which is called Clarify. The interesting thing is no matter what's coming at you in your life, there are actually only 6 things that you can do with that information. So when we ask the question, is it actionable? If the answer is no, then you only have 3 things to do in the first instance. You can either trash it, you can reference it, which means I'm going to put it in a place that should I need to get it, I can get it quickly, or I'm going to incubate it, which means I'm not going to do anything with it now, but I'm going to put it into my system to be reminded about it at a later stage. If the answer is yes, I can action it, then I'm going to do it now. I'm going to apply the 2-minute rule. The 2-minute rule will hugely help you ramp up your productivity by doing things that take less than 2 minutes in the moment. You can delegate it, and again, if you're delegating, it's really critical that they're sized in the right way, in essence, what can be done at one sitting. And it's very clear on what needs to be done, so that the person you're giving the work to doesn't look at it and say, I'm simply not sure what I need to do here. And you spend your life sending emails back and forward trying to figure out what needs to be done. Or you can defer it, which simply means I need to do this, but I can't do it now and it's going to take more than 2 minutes. Hence, I'm going to put it into my system, and when I go to look at it in a few days' time, I'll know exactly what needs to be done. What we also differentiate between in the clarifying stage is something which is a simple next action, can be done at one sitting and is only one step, versus something that's a project. I'll give you a little example of this. Recently I was mountain biking and I got a puncture in my bike. I put my bike in the garage and it was constantly playing on my mind that I needed to get this puncture repaired or I wouldn't be able to go mountain biking again. I asked the question, can I action this? Well, the answer was yes. Could I do it in 2 minutes or less? No. But when I was going to put it into my system, in other words, deferring it, the question then became, well, is there more than one task here? And the answer was absolutely, because I couldn't just walk out to the garage and do this in one sitting. In essence, I now had a project called Fix My Puncture. with the next action being go to Amazon and order a puncture repair outfit. I put that on my list, which means that a day later when I went to do it, I know exactly what needed to be done to move that project 1% or 10 or 20% further on. Imagine having a complete inventory of all the projects that need to be done both in your personal life and in your work life, and having a system that allows you to move constantly forward every day towards completing those projects. That's what this system will do for you. It will not only help you get more control short term, but give you a system that allows you to achieve your projects and your goals, whatever they are in your life, more proactively, so that you have control as opposed to the project having control of you. Again, here's an example of bad practice. If we look at this to-do list, what you'll see is really notes that somebody's put on the list which doesn't clarify what needs to be done. For example, it says mum, or it says bank, or it says dog. So the big challenge with that is that when you look at that on your list in a day or 2 days' time, you scratch your head and say, what was the thing that I needed to do for mum, or what was the thing that I needed to do for the dog? Once it's clarified, what you see is that actually you've got a next action which is called call Anne regarding mum's party. But because it's more than one action, you now have a project called give mum a birthday party. And because you're looking at that regularly, in essence it's a trigger list for actions. You're constantly putting actions into your list which drives you towards concluding projects. Let's look at another example of this. Let's look at a work example. On our list we've written ad campaign. When we go to look at that in a few days' time, at best we may think, what needs to be done here? At worst, we may look at it and say, that's huge, I don't even know where to start. Hence, writing things the wrong way on our list actually drives more procrastination. Putting it through the Clarify model, what you see is we have two things. We have a project called Launch Ad Campaign with a next action called Email Jim to set up the ad campaign. Now when we go to look at that on our list, we instantly know what to do and there's no procrastination, and we're taking steps every day proactively to get that project done. Another thing that comes out of the Clarify model, which hugely helps ramp up productivity, is the 2-minute rule. The 2-minute rule essentially says, if we can do something in 2 minutes or less, then let's just get it done. What this is training our brain to do is get us into action. And of course we'll cover more on how to clarify work should we work together in the future. Best practice is we make a decision about what needs to be done at the point that it shows up, not when it blows up. Now that we've decided what needs to be done, what getting things done allows you to do is to put it into a place that matches the location. In other words, rather than having a single to-do list, what you move to is lists that are context specific. Bad practice is having all your actions on one list. We call it blended stacks. And what you therefore have to do is look down your list depending on where you are. For example, if you're sitting at an airport and you can't access the internet, that means anything that you may need to do on your computer that requires a web browser may be out of the question. You may be in the car. Therefore, anything that needs to be done which requires you to be at your email is now out of the question. Wouldn't it be better to have context-specific lists? For example, to have a list for when you can do email, a list for things that need to be done at computer, maybe a list for things that need to be done at home or only things that can be done in the office, a list for phone calls so that when you're in a place and you have everything required to make phone calls, Everything's on that list with who needs to be called, what they need to be called about, and the phone numbers, so that you can start to churn through that list and get a huge amount of things done. So best practice here is to have clear categories for the different items and the different lists. And of course, we'll show you how to do this. In stage 4, you have to have a system for reflecting frequently. We probably all have this experience of getting everything up to date the night before we go on our holiday and having this amazing feeling of clarity and completeness. Well, what if you had the ability to do that every week? In this stage, what we teach you to do is to have a higher perspective on all your work, so that you're constantly ensuring that everything that's on your mind is out of your mind, is clarified, and is in your system, and you know what needs to be done across all your horizons, be it a next action or a project. Worst practice here is simply reacting to the latest and the loudest thing that's going on in your head. Best practice is having different views across all your work landscapes. What are all the projects that need to be done? What are all the next actions that need to be done? What things are currently outstanding that needs to go into my system and be clarified so that I'm sure that I've captured them? Finally, once you have everything in your system, you then have to decide, well, what should I do first? And again, what we do at Getting Things Done is we give you a system for enabling you to decide what priority to use. Worst practice is simply being busy, feeling like you're getting lots of things done, but actually not doing the right things. Have you ever had that experience where you've got to the end of the day and you've said, I've been really busy today, but I don't seem to have actually achieved anything? Best practice is knowing everything that needs to be done and having a system that helps you make active choices about what to do first. Again, we'll teach you how to do this. Let me just summarise the 5 parts of the system. 1 is a system for capturing work. 2nd is a system for clarifying work and correctly sizing it. 3rd is organising, which is deciding where to put it until you're ready to do it. 4th is a system for keeping everything up to date and for having a greater perspective on what needs to be done. 5th is having a prioritisation system that allows you to decide what needs to be done when. So if you'd like to take this to the next step, we have a number of options for you. Option 1 is you could attend a seminar. Option 2 is we can help you out with some in-house work. Option 3 is we can do some one-to-one coaching. And again, if you look at the system, step 1 is getting the fundamentals in place. And we can do that via seminar, via in-house work, or via coaching. The next step is to be clear on projects and priorities, longer term actions, anything up to 1 year. And then finally, we can help you individually, or you and your team, or you and your family be clear on where do we want to be longer term, and what are the actions required to ensure that we take proactive action required to get to that end destination. So the next step is simple. Click the link below and let's either talk face to face or on the phone and decide which of the options is right for you and help you take your next step towards getting more things done with less effort and less stress. Thanks for watching today.